Creator of Jungalow and just an all-round beautiful creative that I am personally obsessed with, Justina Blakeney has been a massive influence in myself and my life as an interior designer. And you guys loved my video about her home with Architectural Digest so much so that I've decided to do it again. This time around, we are actually looking at one of her older homes, and we are going to be breaking down that design and doing a little bit of a comparison to her newer home. Actually just having a look and seeing if we like what she's done then and see how much of a designer and an artist and creative that she has grown into now. So let's jump right on into it. So the first thing that I honestly noticed is that the Spanish influence is still there in her newer home, and both in this home, they're both Spanish homes. This one in particular is a 1920s home, and it's got all those Spanish influences that you can definitely see, especially on the exterior with the terracotta and almost looking like lime wash kind of exterior. It looks very traditional in that sense, and it's even got some really fun tiles that you see just as she's coming into the space. Honestly, in comparison to her newer home, this is a very pared back look in my opinion. She's kept all of her walls white and then has added color in. This is quite a contrast in comparison to her newer space where it is pink everywhere, whereas here it's just white and then she's added color in. So she's done this through her couch, her rug, and a whole galore of plants, and then has added in timber elements and then even a lot of greenery, both because of the plants and also because of paint. This feels extremely pared back in comparison to her newer space, but it still feels for me a little bit cluttered, and this is probably the thing that I don't like about Bohemian design in my personal opinion. There's a lot of pattern going on, and even though nothing really stands out, personally I'm not a huge fan of this space, but I feel like this is where I'm currently at as a designer myself. You can tell that she doesn't have just unlimited money to just go about throwing around, and she's really working with what she has. I'm not a huge fan of the couch. I don't like the fact that there is so many different patterns going on, but that is very, very normal for a Bohemian style. I do love the fact that she's incorporated color, because a lot of the time with Bohemian looks, usually it's just neutral and plants and maybe some terracotta if you're lucky, whereas she's gone in the other direction, which is really cool. She's added in blues and greens, and the blues and greens flow from one space to the other, and it doesn't feel like there's too much of a disconnect between the two spaces. I love the bookshelf, and I love the fact that there isn't a TV in the space, because it is so often that the TV is the feature piece in a room, and really, why would you want the TV as a feature piece? So I'm really glad she hasn't done that here. That just makes a lot of sense, and I love that. I am not a fan of the shag rug. Personally, I would have probably preferred something that was maybe more of a jute, or something that was a little bit more of a lower ply. We're going with ply today. Honestly, I feel like this is a bit of like a cluttered mayhem going on, especially with the bookshelf. There's a lot on there. I would have probably pared it back just a little bit, but I love the fact that she's going ahead and really showcasing all of their much loved items. Instead of like putting it away or hiding it, she's put it all out on display, which I think is really cool. I feel like people don't do that enough these days, and will only put like the 3 pieces of Kmart decor up onto a piece of shelving, whereas she's gone ahead and said, yep, I'm going to put my library and everything else up on here, and we're just going to find a way to balance it out. And she has balanced it out well. It's just a bit too much personally for myself. Hey, look at the cute monkey. I do love all of her little statues though, they're pretty cool. With the kitchen, I really do quite like this. It feels a bit dated now, but if you go on back about 10 years ago, this would have been the peak of design. We've got this really nice, almost farmhouse style kitchen where you've got the shaker cabinetry, you've got the subway tiles, you've got the floating shelves as well that are out of timber. And then she's incorporated herself and her personal style through mainly the colors and just tweaks to those more traditional elements of farmhouse. So she mentions the mosaic tiles. Those are huge at the moment, and they have been for a few years, but this came out in 2018, so I reckon she was right on the trend, probably even before the trend, which is pretty cool. And you don't actually see these types of tiles, especially currently, the ones that she has now, so that's pretty interesting to see, and to go, oh, okay, she must have been either extremely on trend, or she might have been ahead of the trend, which is Hard thing to do, honestly. One thing that I feel like I don't really like about the space is that the floating shelves, in my opinion, are a bit too high. I would probably bring them down maybe 2 of those subway tiles, and I feel like that would suit the space better. At the moment, they just feel a bit too high. But aside from that, I love the colors that are going on. All the textures are really fun. It's not too out there where someone will go, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I like this space, this is too much going on, but it has personality. Now, if you look at her newer space, a lot of people, even in the comments of my previous video, were like, yeah, no, we don't like this is too much. I personally loved it. Like, wow, just wow. And I'm kind of following in her footsteps a little bit, which is why I'm down here. But if you'd like to see my new living space, you will have to go ahead and like and subscribe to be able to see that in about 2 weeks' time. So do that now, so then you get to see what it looks like. Look at me plugging in the middle of the video. I usually don't do that. Anyway, I do kind of like her floor tiles in this space, but I do feel like the colors are a bit of a clash between the two. It's interesting though, even in her newer space, she's got floor tiles in her kitchen as well, and they've got a subtle pattern as well. And originally I didn't think there was a pattern. I think I said there was no pattern on them in my previous video, and then after I watched it I was like, oh, hold on, there is. Oh, what do you know? Whoops, I said something wrong. Oh well. Overall, I think this is like really peak, like 2010 to 2015 sort of farmhouse look, but with her own twist. So I'm actually not mad about this space. This space is actually pretty good considering the time that it was posted. Oh, and the same thing again, I feel like the shelves are a bit too cluttered, but she's a bohemianist that's a little bit maximalistic and I am not. Okay, so next up is the Bohemian room, and this is kind of like their second living room where there is a TV in here. It's where they come to relax. Honestly, the overall vibe of the space, I love. I think it's really cool. I love all the blues. I think it's really calming. I do feel like there is a little bit of a clash that's happening between the cool and the warm colors. So obviously she's incorporated some warm colors through her rug and her cushions and even her throws. And they do create a point of contrast, which is great. But do I think it really works? It's too, again, the same thing. I really don't like the amount of cushions she's got on there. It looks like a home for the cushions rather than a home for our butts. Like, where are you going to sit with that many cushions that are on there? Obviously she wiggles herself into it, but there's too many. There's too many. Yeah, there's too many cushions, too many patterns as well going on for me as well. I do like a bit of pattern personally, but when it's this many patterns and there's not enough variation in scale, it ends up just kind of looking like a big blob of something, and there's no real defining factor, and it's not really a point of contrast. It's kind of just a blur. I'm not a huge fan of that. I also do think that the rug is a tad too small as well. I'd probably go for the next size up, because although she does have all of her furniture going onto it, and you know, the rug isn't just floating there, it does feel like it is a bit small for the space, and it makes the entire space feel a little bit more enclosed, which isn't really what you want to be doing. And all the pieces of furniture only barely touch it, whereas you want it to be a little bit more luxurious and a little bit more expansive. In her newer spaces, I do feel like she has learnt from this and she has gone with those larger styles, and perhaps this is one of those things where, you know, she is styling on a very tight budget. I know I've had to do that and still am doing that as well. And sometimes you can't get exactly what you're after because of budget constraints. I do actually like the style. I really do love that more Persian sort of vibe of a rug. And I think it's a newer version that does give her that boho look. Do I think it works in the space? Not really. It kind of gets lost a little bit in the flooring as well. The flooring is a very similar light timber wood tone, and it might just be because of the way it's been filmed, but it doesn't create the grounding effect that you really want to have with a rug. I will say, I do really love the hanging planters in this space. I think they're really fun and really interesting as well. I don't think I've ever seen planters like these before, and I'd be curious to see where she's got them from or whether or not they're Jungalow. Unfortunately, I'm in Australia, so I can't get Jungalow, which is, I think about it at night. But anyway, one day, maybe I can get it posted over. I actually never thought about that. If there are any American viewers, I'd like to post me over some Jungalow. Please let me know in the comments below. I do also really love the wallpaper as well. I think it really encloses a space, but in a good way, and creates a bit of depth as well. I think the thing that people don't realize is if you choose the right wallpaper, it can actually make a space feel deeper and bigger than what it actually is. And although it has this enclosing feeling, because there's a contrast of colors and such, there is almost like this tightness, but it still feels large. I don't know if that makes much sense coming from me saying it like that, but wallpaper can make your space look bigger, but it depends on the style, and I reckon this one does it, but it still makes the space feel cozy. This bedroom. Okay. The first thing you notice with the master bedroom is this gorgeous wallpaper, and I swear she used it in her newer home. I'm pretty positive. We'll put it side by side and hopefully it is correct, but I'm almost positive that she has had this in her new home, but in her bathroom. And I honestly really like this wallpaper. I think, you know, it does give the Bohemian sort of sandy vibes, which is cool. I don't know. I just like this wallpaper. It's a really cool wallpaper. The one thing I do wish she did though in this space is maybe make the ceiling gold, or like match one of the colors from the wallpaper up onto the ceiling, because at the moment it does feel just a little bit not like they're talking to each other. Like the ceiling's just, oh yeah, the ceiling. Like it feels forgotten about. You know, you've got all these really fun patterns going on everywhere around, and then the ceiling's just the ceiling, you know. There's not much going on up there. The light fixtures up there look all right though. Actually, I like the light fixtures in this room. So both the ceiling light fixture, which looks very similar to her new space as well, will admit, and the bedside lights. I think the bedside lights are a really fun take on that Bohemian style, but kind of reimagining it, because usually those are like your little like side table lamps like that, but like, you know, round. I'll post the picture here. But so instead she's got them hanging. I think that's really cool. I think it's very innovative. I am not a huge fan of the bedding. I do feel like there is too many patterns going on again. Not necessarily that the patterns are bad. I do quite like the patterns individually, but putting them all together, there feels like there's something off again. And I think this is the same thing that we're seeing throughout the rest of the space, is that there needs to be a change in scale, or a more drastic change in scale, to have all of these pieces have their own voice and not get lost altogether. Because at the moment they feel very lost together, particularly the front two cushions on her bed. They really get lost in the rest of the bedding with the really bold black and white that's there. And then you've got these two that's trying to be, you know, more centered, front of attention sort of thing, but they just don't have enough oomph to them, that they kind of just magically disappear into the bed. If she had gone maybe with a solid black, a solid orange, a solid blue, or even a gold or something like that, then it would have been like, oh, okay, beautiful. Like there's a bit more balance in the space. As of right now, there isn't very much balance with those cushions. A lot of the time when you're doing the boho, there is a lot of pattern that goes on, but majority of the time it's all neutrals. And because they're all neutrals, it's more of a textural play. Whereas because she's adding color in and she's trying to play with other colors, it's more than just the textural aspect now. Also, I have no idea what kind of tree that is in the corner, but I love it and I want it. It's very fun. Okay, this is where I'm going to be mean. Okay, you know what? I'm going to be mean. I'm not going to be vague and, you know, try and look at the positives. I hate this patio. There, I said it, okay? It feels drab. It feels sad. I don't like the colors. It just feels very worn and tired. When we're doing any form of outdoor patio or anything like that, a lot of the types of things that are available for us, there are a lot of these mid-tones that you can have outside. But once you put them outside, they look very washed and weird very quickly. I've even got it in my own space. We've got this like mid sort of gray, and it just looks sad. It looks so sad. And I feel the same with this space. Like the actual exterior of the house and, you know, the cream and the terracotta, beautiful. I love the rattan as well. But when it comes to the actual furniture in the space, it just makes me want to cry. The pattern, funnily enough, doesn't bother me because it just looks so washed and so worn. It doesn't feel like a pattern anymore. It feels like it's been out there for the last 20 years and is begging for a refresh. Even looking at her newer patio, it looks more alive, whereas this feels depressing. Overall, I don't really love this space. I think a lot of the elements are fun, and I think you can see that she's getting to where she needs to be, and obviously she has progressed to that point now. But I think the implementation of the way she has done it at this point in time in her life just wasn't quite right. And it does make me question, okay, was she not completely free financially? Was she doing it on a tighter budget for whatever reason? Or was she just still learning and experimenting? And that's okay to do as well. I know I'm still in the learning and experimenting phase. And if you look at my spaces, you'll be like, dude, you're no better than her. You can shut up. And that's fine. But and I know where I can improve. But personally, for me, it's financial constraints. And even though I know I can do better, actually being able to implement that is a lot harder than what it actually is. But I'm really glad to see where she started and where she is now, because where she is now is just, it's night and day. It's such a beautiful space, her newer home, and it feels like it's all her. Whereas this feels like it's part of her, but there's been restraints, and so she wasn't quite able to actually fully express herself. Whereas in her newer space, she does. So if you'd like to see that other video and actually have a look at what her newer space looks like, make sure you stick to the end and it will be up here. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.